Hello everyone, this is Gene from NYC again, and I'm back with another video. So as always, thank you so much for watching my videos, for taking time out to listen to what I have to say. So today's video is going to be about the TCPA motion to dismiss that was filed by Monica and Ron's attorney, J. Sean Lemonie. Right? I've actually been looking through the entire document, 500 plus pages, like 525 pages in total. It's a lot of information, it's a lot to go through. Obviously you can't cover every single thing, but what I can tell you, having read it and having some understanding of the legal process, given my own professional and personal knowledge and experience, what I can say, I think, with a decent amount of certainty is that this motion to dismiss, this TCPA, is bogus. At least when Funimation did theirs, they pretty much stuck to the script, right? They stuck to the facts. In my opinion, J. Sean Lemonie, who is the attorney for Ron and Monica, I think this entirely has become personal for him, especially when it comes to Nick Rekieta. He refers to Rekieta as an alleged lawyer and as a shock jock. I believe that was meant to be demeaning toward him because Nick does not pull punches in his live streams. He mocks Mr. Lemonie all the time. And I think that this has entirely become personal for him, which if it were me, if I were Monica or Ron, I would actually have Mr. Lemonie taken off this case, because it should never become personal for an attorney. The point of your attorney is to be objective and to argue for your best interest. That's the job of an attorney, is to argue for the best interest of their client. In my opinion, having looked over 500 pages of this, I don't think this TCPA helps Ron or Monica at all. I think it hurts them greatly, in large part because if you read through this, you read through the TCPA, the actual argument, right? Because the rest of the documents are just various exhibits which are supposed to serve as supporting documents to support what they say. Again, this is basically a plea. The way I would describe it is this is a plea to a court, ultimately to a judge, right? Stating, as it says here, right? Let me just pull it up for a second, right? The point of the TCPA, right, is that here's what it says here on the form itself, right? That pursuant to the Texas Citizens Participation Act, the TCPA or Act, defendants Monica Rial, Miss Rial, and Ronald Toye, the moving defendants, respectfully request that this court dismiss plaintiff's amended petition, the petition, filed by plaintiff Vic Mignogna, and award moving defendants all court costs, reasonable attorney's fees, and a sizable sanction that will send the deterrent message plaintiff so desperately needs to hear. Right, so this entire document is about convincing the court, right, ultimately the judge, that this case needs to be thrown out, that you need to award Ron and Monica all court costs and attorney's fees, and now sanction Vic. Remember Monica saying this? One second, let me just find it. Remember Monica saying what I'm about to read on Twitter? I have never said anything hurtful toward Vic or any of his fans. I don't want to ruin his life. He is my friend. I don't want him to be labeled a predator for life. I want him to get help and realize that his actions may have hurt people. Now, she and her simp of a man now want a sizable sanction against him now. So, yeah, you're a really good friend, Monica. You're a really good friend. But anyhow, right, so you have to present this to a judge and convince him that everything you say is true, that this needs to be thrown out and just give the win to us, right? Yet, this document, right, starts out with the introduction, right? I'm reading the introduction right now. It says here that plaintiff, that would be Vic, is a public figure and his lawsuit is an all-out assault on Ms. Rial and Toye's right to free speech to comment on public concern, in particular plaintiff's conduct with women and children both in public and behind closed doors. Keep in mind, the reason why this is even an issue that's being played out in the court of public opinion is because Monica, Jamie, and others alleged online that Vic was guilty of sexual assault and of inappropriate interactions and conduct with minors. They allege this online, on Twitter, on the internet. They have expressed their free speech. Vic said himself that for the first several months he didn't do much of anything because he didn't know how to respond. So you have the attorney starting out here saying that this lawsuit is an assault on Monica and Ron's right to free speech, when it was them exercising their right to free speech that made this a firestorm in the first place. As you look through this, I am positive that if you've been following this, and I'll leave a link to it, that if you look through this, you will see so much mischaracterization, so many, in my opinion, flat-out lies. For example, there is one part of the actual plea itself, right, where Lemonie summarizes Monica's alleged rape, well, not rape, alleged attempted sexual assault by Vic, right? The hotel room story that Stan Dowland doesn't remember. And what I find interesting is that I have looked through this entire document, right? There's not one mention, I don't believe there is, but with the exception of the depositions. The depositions of Ron, Monica, and Vic are in here. So for those people who would prefer to read the depos, or who don't like the fact that Vicada's videos go on for like 4 and 5 hours because he's always making comments and whatnot, you can look at this document, you can scroll down, and you can read the depositions of Ron, Monica, and Vic for yourself. Right? So they're available now. There's transcripts here if you want to look it up and verify it for yourself, and you don't want to listen to the video. Just making that clear. But Lemonie recounts Monica's hotel story, and he says in his summary of it in the plea that Monica went along with Vic, again, allegedly almost sexually assaulting her, almost raping her. Sorry, I'm getting a case of the hiccups now. Of course I am. Right, to save her career. I watched the Monica deposition, all 5 hours of it. I read through Monica's deposition. I've seen many videos that focus on the part where Monica talks about her alleged assault at IzumiCon back in November of 2007. Never once does she say that she feared for her career. Never once does she say that she feared for her career or feared that Vic would somehow retaliate with her career. Doesn't mention anything about her career or going along with Vic and his advances for the sake of her career. So, Jay Sean, you're lying. You are telling an untruth. And you know you are because you could easily check the record. You have the depositions. You have the tapes. You can easily check the record and see that Monica didn't say that. You are asserting that Monica said that when she didn't. That is an untruth. So, I'm just going to go through this because I have several tabs open. I'm going to try to just, because again, you can't cover everything, but I want to cover some of the stuff that really, really, really stood out to me. Right, so one of the things that stands out to me is that there's a point where they mention prior to filing suit, Vic's friend proposes an agreement to avoid litigation. Plaintiff will publicly declare himself a sex addict if Ms. Rial and Ms. Marchi will recant. And it summarizes with the email that Chuck Huber, if you're not familiar with the name, you may recognize some of his roles. He voiced Hiei in Yu Yu Hakusho. That's probably his most famous role. He voiced Hiei. He voices, I think, Stein in Steins Gate. He voiced, what's his name? He voiced Tucker. He voiced Tucker in Full Metal Alchemist. And he's had other roles, right? So this document's supposed to summarize, right, what Chuck was trying to do. But let's look at Chuck's actual email interactions, right, the actual back and forth between him and Monica, right? So let me see here. If you're looking on the depot, if you want to check it for yourself, Chuck's emails start on page, what page is this? Okay, the bottom page is going to be page exhibit 13p.003. Right, you have to sort of like scroll down because of the nature of emails. You have to start from the bottom email and then work your way up. Right, so here's what it says here. Again, I'm reading from Chuck's email. Right, so he's proposing, right, what Vic would say, right, if they can all agree to end the fighting. Right, so it says here, again, this was a draft. It never came out. As Vic said, it was just Chuck was trying to broker peace. Right, so it's just a draft. It never came out. So here's what Vic would have said had this all been agreed to. My name is Vic Mignogna, and I am a sex addict. Addict behavior is, by its nature, hurtful and mostly unseen by the addict. I am working with a therapist to understand my addiction and to get healthy. I have never intended to hurt anyone, but it is so obvious now that I did. To the people I hurt, there are no words that will suffice. All I can say is that this experience has permanently moved me toward a better path, and I am doing my best to be a better person. I am sorry and will make amends wherever possible. To the fans who continue to harass and threaten, you are not my fans if you do this. Your behavior needs to change every bit as much as mine does. Like me, you should be given the opportunity to change. I am working every day to be the same on the outside as I am on the inside. I only ask the opportunity to demonstrate that I have changed and continue the work I so dearly love. I am canceling my appearance at Anime Masori and am taking a leave from all convention appearances until, in conjunction with my therapist, I am ready to come back. I will take my recovery and return one day at a time. Keep in mind, this is not a statement Vic made. This was a draft statement drafted by Chuck Huber in what was Chuck's attempt, I think Chuck's very bad attempt, but still Chuck's attempt to try and broker peace. So this is what Vic would have said, would have acknowledged. First of all, I want to point out a few things. First of all, Vic, to my knowledge, I believe he was asked during his deposition if he was seeking therapy or in therapy for sex addiction, and he said no. Number two, even if Vic admitted to this, you still need formal diagnosis. Vic can say he's a sex addict all he wants. I personally don't think he is. I think he just has a case of infidelity. That's not new. A man being unfaithful. That's not new. It's sad, it's a character flaw, but it's not new. I don't think it's a sex addiction. I think he can't keep it in his pantsitis. But anyway, even if it was sex addiction, Vic admitting this would not actually prove anything, because you would need a formal diagnosis. You would have to go to a therapist and be formally diagnosed with having a sex addiction. That's how you would prove it, not with just some sort of statement. You would prove it by actually going through the proper channels. Number two, with all due respect to Chuck, Chuck is not a medical professional. Chuck is not a therapist. He is not a clinician. He is not a psychiatrist. He is not a psychologist. Right? So in my opinion, he never should have suggested this in the first place, because unless there's some part of his work history I'm not familiar with, he has no knowledge and no experience in the medical field. He is not a practicing medical professional of any type, to my knowledge. To my knowledge, Chuck Huber's work experience is as a voice actor, and a long time ago he was a principal. That's it. So in my opinion, he never should even suggested Vic admit to something that would need a formal medical diagnosis. But that is me, right? So again, this was a draft. This is what Vic would admit to if accepted. right? So this comes from March 6th, from Chuck Hooper's email, right? So here's Chuck's email, or rather actually, here is Monica's response, right? And again, this is what Vic would have admitted to, right? This is what he would have formally stated had this actually come to pass. So here's Monica's response, right, to Chuck and to this, again, offer, right? Hey Chuck, this is Monica again. Hey Chuck, I hope you don't mind that I've CC'd Jamie, I'm assuming that would mean Jamie Marchi, on the email. Does he realize, I'm assuming she's talking about Vic here, does he realize that all of this could have been avoided had he just released this statement in the beginning? Keep in mind, Vic actually did release a statement in the beginning where he admitted that he may have hugged people without their consent, unknowingly making them uncomfortable, and that he was sorry. He apologized in a tweet and he apologized in public. There is tape video where he attended a con very early after all this happened, and he in tears admits that he was wrong for assuming that everybody wants a hug. So he actually did admit, he did apologize, at least for some of his behavior. But of course, you know, saying that you may have hugged people and unintentionally made them uncomfortable is nowhere near as damning as admitting you're a sex addict. But here's the thing. Again, going back to the email, I'll start over. I hope you don't mind that I've CC'd Jamie on the email. Does he realize that all of this could have been avoided if he had just released this statement in the beginning? Here's what I don't understand. Where is our part in this? If he releases this statement, what does that mean for us? That he'll drop, one second, any and all lawsuits? I would need to know that before I agreed. If that's the case, I would love to make this work. Here are some things we would need, though. A statement in writing stating that he would not sue us or our employers at a later date. A public apology from Nick Rekieta for the name-calling and harassment. The GoFundMe funds to be either returned to the fans or given to a charity that deals specifically with sexual assault harassment. Let me know what you think. So Monica, again, who claimed it in a tweet, right, that I don't want to ruin his life, he is my friend, right? When it comes to, again, her friend admitting serious fault, her response is basically to make demands, right? Like it's a hostage negotiation type of situation. Now she's making demands, and her demands were that basically to defang Vic, right? Because again, she says here in this email that these were the things that she, and because it says here are some of the things we would need, so this would be her and presumably Jamie. A statement in writing stating that Vic would not sue them or their employers at a later date, right? A public apology from Nick Rekieta, right? So now they're involving someone who has nothing to do with it, right? They're demanding for Vic to admit that he's a sex addict. Nick Rekieta needs to apologize, I should say, for his comments and for the name calling and the harassment. So you want Vic to admit he's a sex addict on the condition that Nick Rekieta apologizes. That makes sense. And then for the GoFundMe funds to be returned to the fans or given to a charity. So take his money away. Take his ability to fight back legally away from him. This was never about helping him. This was never about having to take drastic measures to make him see the error of his ways. This was, in my opinion, having read everything. I cannot cover everything in this video. It's way too much. But I've read all the affidavits that are in here. I've read pretty much every article, right? They cite articles that have been clearly debunked, like the Gizmodo article, like the Polygon article, what is it? What else? What the Anime Network news article. Everything's in here has been debunked. They have this list of, you know, people who are Kick Vic, right? And they list, one of the names that they list are Samantha Inoue Hart. Keep in mind, the same Samantha Inouye Hart who was caught mere hours in a lie, in a fake swatting that she tried to blame on Vic and his supporters. That Samantha Inouye Hart. But I should believe that Vic is such a predator and a monster, when among your witnesses, among the evidence that you want me to believe this, is a woman who was caught lying about a swatting and blaming it on Vic and his supporters. But anyways, I was saying again, Monica claiming that I don't want to hurt Vic, but she would only agree to this if her demands were met. So let's continue with this email exchange, right? So this is Chuck responding to Monica, right? Still March 6th. Chuck says, one second. So here's Chuck's Chuck's response, right? Chuck's response is, from what I can tell, is what Monica, Jamie, and Ron would say hypothetically, right? This is what they would say. Things have gotten out of hand, and some form of working together is the only way to solve the split that has fractured the fandom we all love. This statement intends to start that healing process. Some of the ways we have spoken out against Vic have been over the top, and have done harm to victims of sexual assault by making it more difficult for them to come forward. So many of you have reached out to us to tell us your stories not related to Vic, and we encourage you to continue. We agree that everyone has the right to demonstrate that they've changed and that Vic should be given that opportunity. Our zeal to protect all victims of sexual assault, moved by heightened social attention, has caused us to misunderstand and misstate stories regarding Vic, indicating that they were akin to criminal offenses when they were inappropriate advances. Our intention has never been to destroy Vic. Yes, it has, but anyway, but to help him realize his behavior and lift up victims who have been hurt. We are willing to start again and ask everyone to join us. Sorry, minor interruption. As I was saying, right, so this is what Ron and Monica and Jamie would have said in a formal statement. Funimation, apparently, I wonder how much pull Chuck has in Funimation if he can even consider the idea of drafting a hypothetical statement from them. But anyway, Funimation, this is what would have been said had it all been agreed to. We have reconsidered our decision, and Vic will continue in the roles he has played for so many years. At this point, he will not be available for casting in any new properties, but we are willing to give him a second chance with proper oversight for the sake of the fandom. He is sincere in his efforts to look at his behavior, and we intend to support those good efforts. We have implemented training for voice actors surrounding fan interactions and social media. We will expect more of ourselves as a company while expecting better from our artists. There are no winners in this fight, and the ones who lose are you, our fans. That line is actually quite true, so I have to agree with that. 100% of Vic's GoFundMe has been matched, quadrupled by Funimation, and $512,000 have been jointly donated to Rain in the name of all anime fans. And Vic would pay for legal fees out of pocket. Right, so this was what was the conditions of surrender, right? Or conditions of peace, a peace agreement, as it were, right? That Chuck was trying to broker. And I don't blame Chuck. I'm not mad at him. I think, again, he went about it wrong, because I do believe that this is throwing Vic under the bus, but I don't think he had any ill intent. I think he was trying to head off everything that's happened. I think he was trying to head it off at the pass. So again, I think he went about it wrong, but I don't think he had any nefarious intent. I just think it was a case of what is called in economics perverse incentives. Good idea, bad execution. But anyway, so next email, right? So again, this is proposed, right? This was what was proposed. So, right? So this is from Chuck. Next email is from Chuck to, I presume, Monica and possibly Jamie. Their legal team. I'm assuming Vic's legal team he means by that, but their legal team would require a statement from you guys. There is also the possibility of a statement from Funimation. I'm sure Nick would be on board. That is most likely Nick Ricada. These are draft, right? Again, draft. These are draft, and all is discussion, and I would be very interested in any adjustments you'd require. Having no statement from you guys is a non-starter. So, here's Monica. Hey Chuck, do they only want a statement from us if Funimation agrees to release a statement as well? If so, that's ridiculous. We cannot force Funimation's hand. If they would like to negotiate with us separately, we are open to the idea, but that statement is unacceptable. So the statement which says that they were wrong to attack Vic so viciously is unacceptable. Again, Monica, given the evidence before me, looking at it as objectively as I can, I believe that Monica Rial was always out to destroy Vic. I believe that she never had any intention of forgiving him. She wanted to see him suffer. She wanted to see him out of the business. I believe that. The statement where they admit that they went after Vic too hard apparently now is unacceptable. So Chuck writes, Funimation is separate, but I wanted to give you everything I had. What changes would you make? Chuck continues, and obviously this is all preliminary work to see if negotiations are even possible. So again, he was trying to broker peace. So going back to the email, to see if negotiations are even possible, which I believe they are. Once there is a table set with possibilities, everything would go through the law firm. You would contact them when you're ready, but there's only a couple of days left to figure out a deal. Chuck continues, and please don't mistake this as some weakness on their part. This is my effort to try and stop something I know will be very damaging. Again, this is referencing the legal team, the legal action. In the deposition, not the depo, sorry, in the earlier part of the TCPA, J. Sean Lemonie, who I believe is at best misrepresenting nearly everything in the TCPA and at worst lying about it, tries to frame Chuck's portion of this email here as Chuck saying, oh, the fans are going to come after you. Vic is going to come after you. He's going to send the attack dogs. That's the impression that I get. When clearly, when you look at these things in context, Chuck is referencing Vic's legal team. But anyway, going back to it, they have a full court press prepared, and that is not a minor effort. They will be extremely thorough in both the legal and social spheres. And let's see here. Chuck continues, I've discussed it with them. They have the statements and have given their input. I'm pushing as hard as I can on both ends to try and meet in a middle. Please note the disclaimer at the bottom of my emails. It would be a serious breach to be sharing with outside parties. Too late. The contents of this negotiation and would likely scuttle it. So, after all this is from Jamie, right? This next email is from Jamie Marchi to Chuck with Monica copied on it. That statement is not true. We will not make any statements that are not true. So again, let's go back to the original statement, because this is Jamie stating that the statement that was proposed is not true and that they will not make any statements that are not true. So let's look at the proposed statement. Things have gotten out of hand, and some form of working together is the only way to solve the split that has fractured the fandom we all love. This statement intends to start that healing process. Per Jamie Marchi, they never had any intention to start a healing process. By her own words, that statement is not true. We will not make any statements that are not true. I take that to mean that they never had any intent to heal anything. There was this video that came out shortly after the Kick Vic, I Stand With Vic fighting started, where several voice actors, including Monica, she was the last person featured in the video, tried to basically call for peace and say, look, whichever side of the issue you fall on, that doesn't mean that we all can't love anime, basically trying to call for a peace to the fighting. And Monica herself was in this video. But you have Jamie Marchi, who may have been in the video, I don't recall. But you have Jamie Marchi stating that that statement that Chuck would have drafted is not true. So in other words, they never had any intent of actually healing, of actually trying to move forward. They want to destroy Vic. That's the impression that I get. So let me see here. There's a few more emails. Trying to find them. Okay, so here's another email from Monica saying, before we waste the time drafting a statement, is this something you have discussed with his legal team, that would be Vic, or is this simply a trial and error situation? And here's when Chuck says, so this is Chuck's response, right? This was all happening on March 6th. Sean and Chris, I believe it's most likely Sean Schemmel and Chris Sabat, are not going to show up in court for you. You will be on your own. You have a chance to walk away gracefully. They should have taken it. And let the lawyers fight with companies if that is the end result. Anyone egging you on toward the suit does not have your best interest at heart, nor your financial responsibility. The lawyers are indifferent to this negotiation, and it is solely my own, as you'd expect from me. So Monica responds to that by saying, give us some time to go over this information with our attorneys and we'll get back to you. Chuck says, if you are talking to attorneys, then legally and ethically, my job is done, and your next step is to contact the law firm. They will not reach out to you, and you should expect to be served in the next couple of days. Guess what happened? They got served. So Chuck was right. Chuck was right, at least in that regard. Right? So, Jay Sean, Mr. Lemonie, tries to take this entire email exchange where Chuck is clearly, even though I disagree with his methods, is clearly trying to broker peace and tries to make it seem like Chuck thinks that Vic is a sex addict. Again, it doesn't matter what Chuck thinks. Chuck is not a medical professional. He cannot diagnose any condition. But moving on, because I can't cover everything as much as I would like to. This video is probably already, let me take a look at this. It's already 32 minutes long, so. All right, so that was just Chuck. All right, and get this. So, this is the email from February that Vic sent to Monica, right? Dear Monica, I understand that I have hurt you deeply, and I am writing to humbly ask for your forgiveness. I have been racking my brain trying to figure out what I did that would make you so angry with me, and I am embarrassed to say I don't know. I hope you will share what it is with me so that I may sincerely apologize. I've had to step away from social media for sanity's sake. A friend alerted me to your recent tweets. You've always been one of my most cherished friends in the industry. The thought that I have caused you pain is inconsolable. I am learning that I have not been good at discerning how I come across to others. I am working on being better and doing better with the help of a counselor. I have been crushed under the weight of the events of the past 3 weeks, and I am fully committed to changing the things about me that need to change. I sincerely hope you find it in your heart to share with me what you're thinking and feeling. Regardless, please know that all these years we have been friends. All the events, projects, and meaningful conversations we shared are treasured ones, and I am gutted at the thought that I ruined something I valued so very much. Vic. So this was the email he sent to her back in February, right? Monica forwards this email to a Colleen Carroll. Now, I think, I'm going to be honest, I'm of the opinion that this is probably Colleen Clickenbeard. Not certain because her last name's not on here, but I do think her full name is Colleen Carroll Clickenbeard. Not positive, but I think it's her. So this is what Monica says to Colleen Carroll, whoever this person may be, though again I do think it's Colleen Clickenbeard. This is what he always does. He's trying to use his charm to get out of this. He knows what he did. It's disgusting. And he was told by Sony to not contact me. Here's my issue with this. If I were Monica and I knew that I was going to forward this to another person at the company, you know what I'd do? I'd respond to Vic. Knowing that I'm going to forward this or copy someone else, I'd respond to Vic and I'd tell him exactly what he did. So that this other person who would be a part of the email chain would know what he did. I'd tell him exactly what it was. So he would know, and so the other person who I need to convince would know. But she doesn't. She just uses the ambiguous, he knows what he did, even though he's clearly stating in here that he doesn't know. And he stated during the depositions that he didn't know, that he was flabbergasted by all this, and that Monica wouldn't tell him. And this is corroborated by the way Monica behaved online. For the longest, she would not tell anybody what supposedly happened. She says, "It happened to me," but she wouldn't talk about what happened. And then when people questioned her and challenged her, she put out a form tweet threatening legal action, and she sent it out so much that it became a meme. But when he asks you what he did that was so wrong, your response is to not respond to him, but to forward it to another person and say, "This is what he always does," as if that person is going to have an understanding of what you mean by that. Sure, Monica. I don't believe Monica was trying to protect him. I believe Monica didn't write anything because she probably didn't have a story in mind at that point. That's what I think. I think that she hadn't figured out which story she wants to make up yet, so she couldn't write anything. So that's my opinion of this email. So another part, right? I will give Jay Sean this much. He does include exactly one positive character statement from an Alyssa Flutie. Keep in mind, though, and this is what I find interesting, right? He includes affidavit after affidavit after affidavit from various people, from Kara Edwards and others, from Vic's ex-girlfriend, Michelle, talking about how much, of a creeper he is. Yet, out of all the affidavits included, you know whose affidavit isn't in this document? And again, it's 500 plus pages, and I've looked through each one. There's no affidavit from Stan Dolan, who said that he did not recall the events that Monica was talking about, and that if he had seen Monica in distress, he would remember it, and that if he had known that there were any issues between Vic and Monica, he wouldn't have had them at the same cons together. I find that interesting, Jay Sean, that out of 500 pages and numerous affidavits, you don't include the one that makes your client look bad. When the man who supposedly saved her from the evil predator Vic Mignogna says he doesn't remember the event in question. Very interesting. All the affidavits except the one that makes her look bad. Right, so continuing. Right. So, this is an email. What I'm about to read now is an email conversation between Vic and Tammy Denbo. Tammy is the person, I believe, from Sony that did their investigation and ultimately made the determination that would cause Funimation to fire Vic. So I'm hoping at some point she gets deposed. So anyway, Vic writes to Tammy saying, "Thank you for your time, Tammy, albeit a difficult conversation. I just wanted to reiterate a couple of things. Sarah Bachmeyer and I corresponded via text, phone calls, and in person for at least a year or more. I regularly stopped by her office while in the studio recording just to say hi. She gave me every indication that she liked me and welcomed my interest in her before I ever asked to kiss her." So here's Vic stating that he asked for consent. He asked to kiss her. And she agreed. And it was a couple of years ago, and she has never expressed any offense then or since. So I feel that's why it's coming up now as suspect. That's the first point. Second point. My relationship with Monica has always been completely platonic. That jelly bean joke was in bad taste at worst, but it was also many years ago was simply quick banter meant to be funny. She and I... Sorry, one moment. She and I have had dozens of events and projects together since then, and she has not only never mentioned any offense, but has treated me exactly the same as the good friends we've been for 20 years. So here's Vic asserting again, they've been good friends for 2 decades. She's never said anything. Don't you think about it, In regular human interaction, if your good friend does something or says something to offend you, don't you think at some point you would bring it up to them? Even if it was years later and you're having a conversation, you're like, hey, you remember that time when you did this or you said that? Well, I didn't say it at the time, but, that really kind of bothered me. Don't you think at some point, if they were truly decent friends, that she would have said, you know what, I know it was years ago, and I know you didn't mean anything bad by it, but that jelly bean joke was in poor taste, and I thought it was kind of sexual. Vic would have apologized if Monica had ever let him know. Monica didn't let him know, because in my opinion, she didn't take it as an issue. She didn't take it as an issue until now. So anyway, this is the next point that Vic makes. Additionally, many things are said and done by voice actors at conventions in front of fans that's much worse. In fact, many conventions have after dark panels where voice actors actually share explicitly sexual stories and profanity in front of an audience of fans. Parentheses, I have never attended one because it's not who I am. Close parentheses. I hope you don't mind me sending you this. I just wasn't sure if I communicated those points clearly enough. So here's Vic admitting that he doesn't know what he did was so wrong. Monica never told him anything. And that, as many people who have attended conventions and numerous hours of video online can show you, that yeah, voice actors can get pretty salacious. And yet somehow it's Vic who's losing his career. Chris Sabat's had some pretty questionable interactions with female fans and cosplayers. He was caught online flirting with a female cosplayer. Why isn't he losing his job? So anyway, next point. Alright, so now I'm looking at the affidavit of one Cara Edwards, right? So here's my thing about Cara, right? If you look through the actual affidavits, right, there's several, more than 5. Almost all of them are pretty much going to say the same thing, that Vic is a creeper, that Vic grabs hair, that Vic is inappropriate. But there are just certain things I want to point out about a few of them. One of them being Cara's. Let me just find it here. Right, the funny thing is that at least her and I think another woman named Mary Reese say that they thought Vic was gay because I guess because of his mannerisms. Vic isn't gay, he's flamboyant. But I find that interesting. Like, isn't it stereotypical? Isn't that offensive to immediately assume he's gay just because he has a dramatic and flamboyant personality? But anyway, so here's what she says. Here are some of the accounts that she gives as to why Vic is such a terrible person. And again, she's swearing that this is the truth. Because when you swear in an affidavit, right, you are swearing that under penalty of perjury, and you can go to jail for lying, that this is the truth as far as you know it, right? So she's saying that she thought he was gay and she let her guard down around him because she didn't think he'd be interested in her romantically. So she says here that this is point 4 in her affidavit. Mignogna and I were staying in the same hotel in rooms next door to each other for the Animegate convention. Our rooms shared an internal door. On Sunday night, we walked back to our hotel rooms together after closing ceremonies and said goodbye. Mignogna proceeded to give me a hug that went on for a really long time and made me feel uncomfortable. There's her allegation of sexual assault. That Vic gave her a hug that went on for a really long time and made her feel uncomfortable. Keep in mind, she doesn't say that, for example, he became sexually aroused and she could feel that. She doesn't say that. I know she doesn't say it because I've read the whole damn affidavit. She doesn't say that Vic started touching her, right, or trying to kiss her or anything like that. She doesn't say that Vic copped a feel. It's just he hugged her for a really long time and it made her feel uncomfortable. There's your sexual assault. A hug that went on for a few seconds longer than perhaps it should have. That is not sexual abuse. That is not sexual harassment. Inappropriate contact? Maybe. Maybe unwelcome contact of a physical nature. That's possible. But there's nothing sexual about a hug that goes on for too long. There's nothing inherently sexual about that. So she continues, right? She continues in her affidavit saying that I want to emphasize the next points here, right? She says, I was able to get away from Mignogna's hug, say bye, and went into my hotel room alone. After I said goodbye to Mignogna, I called my husband. So keep this in mind. She has a husband at this point, and she called him, meaning that she has means of communication to the outside world. Keep this in mind. And said goodnight to him. Shortly after I hung up with my husband, I started hearing knocking on the door between my room and Mignogna's room. I froze and did not answer or open the door. Here's my first question. Why would you automatically be reacting in such a fearful manner from a man who just gave you a hug? No threats, no groping, he just gave you a hug. And yet you're reacting with fear. Wouldn't it make more sense for her to react with confusion, ask why he's knocking at her door? Anyway, she continues, the knocking stopped, and then my hotel room phone rang. It was Mignogna. Mignogna told me, open the door. Nobody has to know. I said no and reminded him that I was married and hung up the phone. I also knew that Mignogna was in a relationship at the time with Michelle Specht. Mignogna again began knocking on the door between our room and calling through the door in a creepy voice. Come on, Cara, no one has to know. You know you want this. Mignogna would not stop and I began feeling scared. I did not answer the door and locked myself in the hotel bathroom, turned on the shower, and sat down on the bathroom floor, shaking for about an hour until I felt safe again. The next morning, I told another voice actor about what Mignogna did, and I told several other Funimation actors that I'm friends with about what happened that night. You notice how she doesn't say anything about calling her husband back? You notice how she doesn't say anything about calling the police? We're talking about a woman who's saying that there's a creepy man on the other side of the door, and she's clearly frightened, but she does not think to call her husband, who she just spoke with. Doesn't think to call her husband, doesn't think to call the police. When the next morning, she tells another voice actor and other Funimation actors, but she doesn't tell the Funimation HR department, nor does she go to the police and make a formal report. And you wonder why people have trouble believing these affidavits. The behavior makes no sense. She's terrified, but she won't call her husband, who she just spoke to. She's terrified, but she won't call the police. She's terrified, but she won't contact Funimation HR. She'll gab and gossip to other voice actors, but she won't tell Funimation HR. Anyway, let me see here if there are let me see here. So I'm trying to see if there's anything else. Oh yes. So she alleges that several years later they met again, and that she followed Vic to his hotel room. Keep in mind, right? She says that she was in fear when this first event happened several years ago, but she's going to willingly go to his hotel room years later, because that makes sense. And so anyway, Mignogna's hotel room was a suite with a foyer and a sofa. He invited me to sit down to catch up. I sat down on a chair and to the left of the sofa. Mignogna sat down on the sofa next to me and started asking me about my recent divorce. I can remember that Mignogna next dropped to his knee and started rubbing on my thighs and buttocks. In a creepy, seductive voice, he said, "Let me be sweet to you." I stood up to try to get away from him, and he blocked me from leaving. He grabbed me and put me in one of his long, uncomfortable hugs, rubbing his hands up and down my back, trying to console me about my divorce. He pressed his face against mine, moving his mouth as close to mine without actually kissing me. Mignogna would not let me go or give me space. He again whispered in my ear, "Let me be sweet to you." Right? Yet, right? No account of where she says that she went to the police after this, or that she told anybody at Funimation's HR about what he had done, right? The police certainly would have taken a report for that. right? So there's another account in here. Let me try to find it, right? One moment. So she says that she goes and she ends up telling a woman named Mary Reese what happened, and that she told her about both events with Vic, right? And that she said that she was terrified that Vic was going to hurt her career. Keep in mind, right? She has said here that because of these two events, she's now afraid that Vic will hurt her career, right? And she alleges that Vic put her, at the last moment, made her go into a different room, so she was alone for autographs, and she couldn't get any autographs. But here's the thing, right? So again, keep in mind, she's told another person that she's afraid that Vic will hurt her career. So let's see here. So again, so here's what she says, right? She says that in the time since ShadowCon, I have told my mom, Funimation employees, and other voice actors, and many of my friends about what Mignogna did to me. Apparently, she never thought to go to the police. Right? Ah, here we go. Here's what I was looking for. Point 20. In 2012, Mignogna contacted me to talk about a project he was casting. Mignogna told me he wanted to cast me in the role of Dr. McKenna in his new Star Trek web series. He told me he couldn't imagine anyone else for the role. Right? And she says that for many weeks I believed I had been cast and began to clear my schedule for filming. So Vic reached out to her in 2012 to play this role, which apparently she auditioned for, thought she got, and then cleared her schedule for filming. Why would she work with someone who has been a sexual predator with her in the past? Especially when she fears that he will be the end of her career. Remember, Star Trek Continues is a fan series. They don't make any money off of it. This was not something that she had to take because she wanted more fame or clout in the industry or needed money. You weren't going to make money off of this. And keep in mind, she's saying that twice now Vic has been grossly inappropriate with her, and she told Funimation employees and her mother and all this other stuff. Yet, when he reaches out to her, she takes the offer. He reaches out to her, and she auditions and thinks that she got the role. Why? If you're so scared of him, Kara, why did you take up his offer to be in the show? If you're so damn scared? Someone answer that question for me. I'm trying to see if there's anything else here. Right? And she says that now she avoids working with him. How many times, honey? How many times? And then, of course, there's an account where she says that she and Vic were tango dancing for the fans, and despite the way it looked, that she was truly uncomfortable. And she said she tries to make it look like he pulled her to the dance, and she wasn't expecting it or didn't want it. Fans immediately went online and found the video of them tango dancing at a con. She initiates the dance. And now she's claiming online that, the incident I'm talking about happened after that. Sure, honey. Sure. Sure. She also tells another story, right, where she said that this is what she says, after the recording session ended, he, being Vic, sent me a text asking me to get dinner. I responded by saying yes. To protect myself from fallout. Now, she does say that she had no intention of meeting him and didn't see him again following that message. But again, why would you say yes? Why not just say, no, sorry, I can't make it tonight, I have a headache, right? Just say no. Why say yes? Again, her account makes no sense. There are so many many holes. She says here that prior to learning that Vic had been fired from Funimation, that she sent a written statement to Colleen Klink. So I'm assuming she means Colleen Clickenbeard. I'm not sure. And Trina Simon at Funimation, telling them about the advances, assault, and harassment. Yet you have not described any assault or harassment, honey. A long hug is not assault or harassment. And again, you told your mother, you told Funimation employees, you told everybody but the people who could actually do something about it. And you had ample time and reason to. So why didn't you? Why didn't you? That's my question for her. Why didn't you tell the police, Kara? Why didn't you tell Funimation HR, Kara? Why, when Vic contacted you to be in his show, did you audition for the role, Kara? And so that's that. Then we have, let's see here, right? We have this email, right, from Vic and his ex-girlfriend, Michelle. Now, it's a long email. Right? I'm not going to read it all, especially since this video is getting long. But here's the thing. Here's what I find interesting, right? Here's what she says, right? Basically, to sum up the email, she writes this long, hurt email, right? She's a justifiably angry ex-girlfriend, right? You can't fault her for that. She has every right to be angry with him. But here's what she says, right? Because there's an email Vic says where he says that he's beginning to see the depth of how much he hurt her, and he hopes that she's praying, for him to, basically not praying for his destruction, right? And she says to him, she emails him saying, the funny thing is that they redacted part of her email address, so it just shows her first name, but we all know who it is. Anyway, and it shows Vic's full email address, interestingly enough. So they'll redact the emails of people on their side, but when it comes to Vic's, just leave it out in the open. But anyway, so Michelle writes to Vic, and again, right, this is the hurt ex-girlfriend of everybody who has an issue with Vic. She has the biggest bone to pick, because she's the one that he hurt the most with his actions. Yet here's what she says, right? After again writing him a scathing email where she, just verbally takes him to task for his cheating, which is deserved. He cheated on her multiple times. He admits it. She has every right to be mad with him. But here's what she says. If I wanted your destruction, I wouldn't need to pray for it. I have had the opportunity, ammunition, and justification to do so easily for almost a year. And yet, as we can see, she hasn't done it. She has not come out and made any formal accusations against him, to my knowledge. Right? The only proof that we have is that, again, she sent an angry email at him accusing him of sleeping with women half his age. That would be women in their 20s, right? He's 56. That would mean that someone half his age is, what, like 28? Again, immoral, certainly, but not illegal. And interestingly enough, again, this is the woman who has every reason to want to see him suffer and tear him down, and yet she will not do so. Because it was almost a year when she sent this email, because it was March 20th. They broke up in May of 2018. Right? We are now in July. So it's been over a year now, and yet she hasn't really commented on it. So again, Monica, if Vic's own girlfriend, who has every reason to want to see him destroyed, won't do it, why are you? Why are you? How jealous and petty do you have to be to tear this man's career down to shreds and to paint him as something that he is not, just because, what, he was featured on box art and you weren't? That it? You're that jealous, Monica? You're that petty, Monica? Anyway, Here's another one that I wanted to address. I know this video has been crazy long. So, this affidavit I'm about to read legit made me laugh because of how unprofessional it is and how much really it hurts their case, right? So this is the affidavit of John Prager, right? So let's go down to the part here. All right, here's the part that I want to focus on. He says here that he's been working on numerous anime conventions since 2003, and that he was employed at the Teiko convention and all this other stuff, right? He alleges in this affidavit that in 2010, a Japanese celebrity known as Mari Ijima was attending the Teiko convention along with Vic, and that Vic basically started stalking this woman. Right? Here's what Mr. Prager says. He says, this is point 3. In 2010, Mari Ijima, another celebrity guest musician, was attending the Teiko convention along with Mignogna. Mignogna and Miss Ijima were staying at the same hotel for the convention. Since I was head of security, I learned from other staff members that Mignogna was stalking Miss Ijima and harassing her. I want to focus on this point for a moment. Right? This guy is alleging that he heard from other staff members that Mignogna was stalking Miss Ijima and harassing her. There is nothing in this affidavit, I know because I read it, that ever states that Mr. Prager himself ever spoke with Vic about his behavior, ever spoke with Miss Ijima about what Vic is alleged to have been doing, allegedly stalking her. Right? There's not even a statement from her, right, in this about how she was treated or how people behaved. Right? And again, she's the one who apparently was being stalked and harassed. Yet nobody has thought to reach across to Japan and try to contact her and ask her about this, at least from my knowledge. Right? But even still, he heard this from other staff members. And apparently he didn't think to actually investigate this and actually at least speak to Miss Ijima and to Vic and to get an idea of what's going on. I find that very concerning because I know that when there's a safety concern in my job, that the chief of public safety, who I guess for intents and purposes would be the head of security, is on it, and he personally gets involved. He will interview people, he will ask questions, he will take statements. So I'm just wondering why Mr. Prager, again, did not look into this himself. He just went on the word of others. He went on hearsay. There's a reason why hearsay is generally inadmissible in court. And when you look at these affidavits, you also see a lot of hearsay. This person said, this person said. And something else you see a lot of is, well, I saw Vic interacting with young girls. I saw Vic playing piano when young girls were surrounding him. I saw this, I saw that, and I believed it to be inappropriate. Not that they saw, and here's the thing, right? Even when there's one account where he says, well, I saw Vic in a room with 3 underage girls. Were those underage girls underdressed? Were those underage girls performing sex acts on him? Was he performing sex acts on them? Just because something is a bad look does not make it a crime. Something can look bad. Something can look inappropriate. Plenty of things look bad and inappropriate. That doesn't make them a crime. Vic has a lot of young female fans. He likes to entertain his fans. A bunch of girls surrounding him while he plays the piano is not a crime. Cases like this take normal human interaction and put it under intense scrutiny and weaponize it. Anyway, rant over. Continuing. Right, he says that Miss Ijima notified Jim Gogol, who was the CEO of Teiko at the time, that Mignogna had been stalking her and he was trying to get into her hotel room. Okay, where's the paperwork? Was any statements taken? Where's the paperwork stating that Miss Ijima said Vic Mignogna was stalking her? Tell me, because I got no reason to believe you, Mr. Prager. So it says here, that Jim Dogle and I decided to move Miss Ijima to a different hotel room so that Mignogna could not find her. I also ordered my security staff to keep a close eye on Mignogna during this convention. Again, there is no actual paperwork coming from the con. That's another thing. I know I'm ranting a lot, I apologize, but that's another thing about all this. So many of these affidavits make the same accusations, that Vic was creepy, that Vic stalked girls, that he was inappropriate with his teenage fans, that he's a diva, he's this, he's that. Yet no formal statements or documentation from the cons themselves. No formal documentation stating that he was banned because of this, that, or the other. People saying that they voted to ban him, or people saying that he was banned, but no actual proof, no actual statements, no actual official paperwork stating that he was banned from these conventions for this behavior. Another thing is that they all accuse him of being a diva, of being loud, of being, again, obnoxious, wanting to be pampered, yelling at people, being impatient, being an all-and-out jerk, right? Basically being anime's Christian Bale. Here's the thing, though. Not one of the accusations formally against him are about creating a hostile work environment, which, believe me, if you look through these affidavits, what they are describing is clear workplace violence and hostile work environment. Yelling at people to the point that they cry is creating a hostile work environment and is actually an example of workplace violence, because now the workplace is unsafe. It's emotionally unsafe. Yet, no one said that he was fired for that. No one said that he was kicked out of a con for that or not invited back. No official proof of these things. Just people making statements, people telling tall tales, people playing telephone. Anyway, continuing. Right, so let's see here. Right, so he says here that he voted for Mignogna to be banned from Teco back when he was part of the board of directors in 2010. Now, here's the thing. Here's the thing that I really wanted to focus on here. Number 5, and again, this is John Prager's testimony, right? This is his affidavit that he's swearing is true under threat of perjury, right? So he says, based on my personal observations, right, personal interactions, and professional experience and training as a security officer, I believe Vic Mignogna is a sexual predator. Let's focus for a moment on how heavy a statement that is. This man is saying that due to his personal and professional experience and interactions, he believes Vic is a sexual predator. Being a sexual predator is a crime, right? If you're a sexual predator toward children, your name will end up on a registry that will truly end his life. You are making an incredibly heavy claim of him being a sexual predator. Before someone says, well, you've been calling Monica a liar and a snake. Yes, because I believe Monica is a liar and a snake. But I have not accused Monica of being a sexual predator. And I wouldn't do that because there's no proof that she's a sexual predator. I am making accusations as regards her character as a human being. Right? This man is saying that Vic is guilty of crimes. So again, this is a very, very, very heavy statement. I believe Vic Mignogna is a sexual predator based on my personal observations, interactions, and professional experience as a security officer. This is what this man is saying. Let's look at his next line, which I would take as his first line of reasoning for why Vic is a sexual predator. He does not pay attention to the age of anyone he talks to. That's his first line of reasoning. Again, he has just stated that due to his professional and personal experience, Vic is a sexual predator, or at least he believes Vic is a sexual predator. Yet, his first line of reasoning for this is he, being Vic, does not pay attention to the age of anyone he talks to. Talking to people that are not in the same age range as you is not illegal. If simply talking to minors now makes you a sexual predator, that means that we need to put all parents in prison. We need to put all teachers, all types of school staff, the guidance counselors, everybody in jail because they are now sexual predators. Pediatricians, doctors that treat minors, they have to go to prison too now because they talk to minors. Do you realize how stupid this sounds? That this is his first line of reasoning is because Vic doesn't pay attention to the age of anyone he talks to. So not simply talking to people. Politicians now need to go to jail because they kiss babies, right? Again, nothing that could actually be put in prison. Just now, he's a sexual predator because he is not mindful of the age of the people he talks to. Keep in mind that he has a fan base of young teenage girls, which means that if there's an autograph line, that he's going to have mainly young teenage girls interacting with him. And yet, the fact that he does not pay attention to the age of people he talks to is one of the reasons why Mr. Prager believes Vic is a sexual predator. Not because he's actually witnessed Vic being sexually predatory. It could actually prove it, but because Vic talks to minors. There's sexual predator right there, talking to minors. Parents, clink clink, you're in prison now. Then he goes on to say that if Vic is attracted to you, that he will make it known aggressively. A man letting a woman know that he likes her. This is now sexual predatory behavior. He continues, further, I observed a lot of encroachment into other individuals' personal space. For example, I noticed Mignogna place a hand on the wall above a female's head, touching females on the shoulders and the arms, whispering in their ears. I observed this behavior repeatedly with women and teenagers. So he observed Vic being overly affectionate, which has been well documented. He also doesn't explain, and this is the thing I always notice, the content or the context. Did he place a hand on the wall because he was leaning? Maybe he was leaning on the wall and didn't want to lose his balance, right? Was he touching females on the shoulders and the arms because he's giving them a hug? And he's giving them a photo op? Is he whispering in their ears because they've asked him to? Maybe he's reciting a line? I've seen plenty of footage from cons where there will be female con-goers who, ask him to recite lines as Tamaki or whatever, right? And Tamaki's supposed to be very romantic and all this other stuff, right? So yeah, he'll whisper a line that they have requested to hear in their ear. Again, you might think it's a bad look. You might be right. But that is not in and of itself sexually predatory behavior, unless they're going to consider this grooming. If it's supposed to be grooming, then this may be one of the first examples of grooming in public that I've ever heard of. And so then he continues, I've observed Mignogna talk down to the staff and yell at staff during the TCPA conventions. Again, as I stated earlier, then why didn't anybody ever make any complaints about workplace violence or a hostile work environment? I've observed him be dismissive to his guest handlers, and when Mignogna did not get his way, he would throw a huge fit. Mignogna was a pain in the ass to work with. Yeah, and with this statement alone, I'm throwing out everything you say. You clearly have a bias against Vic. You clearly have a bias against him. You don't like him. So why should I believe a word you say? Anyway, getting back to the affidavit, it continues. I observed that staff who were not larger males would be treated in a rude manner by Mignogna. Right? Going to point 7. I have heard stories. Again, I have heard stories. Right? That in the law is what is called hearsay. Hearsay is kind of like, what's that thing? Like the lie detector test. Inadmissible in court. But anyway, I have heard stories about Mignogna and his inappropriate conduct. Again, inappropriate conduct. That is not inherently sexual in nature. He's just saying it's inappropriate. And being inappropriate does not automatically mean you are sexually predatory. Anyway, going back to point 7. I have heard stories about Mignogna and his inappropriate conduct for a long time. I believe that this industry has known of his conduct for over 20 years. And here's the point, right? Guess what? The way I see it is this. Either the industry is blowing Vic's behavior out of proportion, making it out to be something it isn't, weaponizing all the interactions he's ever had with anybody and trying to use it to destroy him, which makes them look bad because now it shows that they're all snakes. Or B, this is a Harvey Weinstein-esque situation where they knew, where everybody knew that a sexual predator, right, and a diva was among them, and yet no one said anything. So either you are complicit in Vic's destruction, or you are complicit in his harassment and inappropriate conduct. But either way, voice acting industry, you are complicit. Anyway, as I was saying, this is going back to the point that Mr. Prager's trying to make. I have heard throughout the upper levels of the convention industry and the voice actor world that he has a bad reputation. I believe the higher level staff and boards of various conventions have not been able to get enough direct evidence in order to deal with this in a proper way. Yeah, because no one ever does things like report his behavior to HR or to the police. I believe Mignogna has left a string of sexual assault victims. Again, he provides no actual evidence of sexual assault. Someone being a diva is sexual assault. And if he indeed was stalking Miss Ijima, why didn't you, Mr. Prager, call the police on her behalf and say, I've been told, and I have reason to believe, that this man is stalking this woman? Anyway, he says, I believe Mignogna has left a string of sexual assault victims across the country due to his celebrity status that follows him to have ample opportunities to be inappropriate. Again, inappropriateness is not inherently sexual. A lot of the smaller conventions put up with Mignogna because they know his fans will show up and spend a lot of money. So what you're saying is that everybody shut their mouths up for money. So again, that makes you all complicit, and you put the safety of young Congos in danger for cash. So, why should I believe you again? Again, there is no paperwork actually demonstrating that anything that Mr. Prager says is true. It's just, I think Vic is a bad man. I heard this. I heard he was stalking this person. I heard stories. You heard stories, but you never took action. You heard stories. You heard he was stalking somebody, which is clearly illegal and against the law, and yet you never thought to tell her or anybody with her to call the police or to call the police yourself. So guess what, voice actor industry? You're all complicit. You are all complicit. Because either you have come together to take a man's innocent, if at times bad-looking interactions and weaponize them to see his career finally fall, or you knew you had a predator in your midst and you said nothing because he generated money. Either way, you are guilty. And you make me sick. Anyway. And again, as I've mentioned previous times, you know, Monica's saying, I have never said anything hurtful toward Vic or his fans. I don't want to ruin his life. I don't want him to be labeled a predator for life. I want him to get help and realize his actions have hurt many people. Let's be honest, Monica. Let's be honest, Monica. I'm of the opinion, Monica, that you don't care about anybody but yourself. You wanted Vic out, and you knew that there were a lot of people in the industry who, for one reason or another, didn't like him. So you all decided to band together and use the fact that these type of accusations have dogged him for years. And again, no one ever took this to the police, but you all knew that these type of accusations have dogged him for years, and you decided then to make your own allegations that you can't prove, because again, this whole entire 500-page document is being submitted by your attorney, Monica. Your attorney. And yet, it does not include it has all these affidavits, all these people saying Vic is a terrible, terrible, terrible creeper. But your savior Stan the man who saved you from Vic's evil clutches, his affidavit stating that he doesn't know what the hell you're talking about is not in here. I find that suspect, and you wonder why I don't believe a word you say, Monica. This is what infuriates me. This is what infuriates me. You see, people, I think justly so, have a lot of criticism against things like Title IX and affirmative consent and whatnot. But here's the thing, situations like the one Monica has described, situations like the ones that these con-goers or security people or whatnot are accusing Vic of, these type of situations, when they are true, are the reason why these things exist. Because at times, because of power dynamics, because of fear, the women in these situations, oftentimes women, it's not just for women, but it's oftentimes women, in these situations don't know what to do, so they go along to get along despite not really wanting to do it. These type of situations, when they are true, are the reason why things like Title IX and things like affirmative consent exist. To help real victims of sexual assault, real victims of people who were in hazy situations, who, for one reason or another, usually due to power and influence, they could not fight back and they had to endure it. It's made for those type of people. But when you have people like Monica, when you have people like Cara, when you have people like Samantha Inouye Hart, when you have people like Jamie Markey, when you have others who twist the reasons, who weaponize normal human interaction, you have situations like this. These are the type of things that make affirmative consent damning, and it makes people afraid to even interact. Right? This is why people want to get rid of things like Title IX and affirmative consent. Because of women like Monica, because of women like Cara, making accusations that they can't prove, writing checks that their collective asses cannot cash, saying things they can't prove. Not because they were caught in awkward situations and there's no real proof, but because these incidents, more likely than not, in one way or another, are false. It is more likely than not, in my opinion, that either these incidents did not happen the way they said they did, or they didn't happen at all. And I believe that they've come together to tear Vic down. Reading through all these documents, again, reading that they're proof that Vic is an evil person are articles from IO9 and from Anime News Network and from Polygon that have thoroughly been debunked, that have proven that they lied. Hell, let's not forget, Anime News Network took a girl's photo and used it without her consent, without her knowledge, didn't talk to her about it, and then misrepresented her story. She had, I think her name was Carrie or Casey Hardwood, if I remember correctly. She had to come out on Facebook and say that Anime News Network did not contact her and that she did not give them permission to use her picture. And the story she told was that it was a perfectly consensual Reasonable Rangers event that her mother put together, and that her mother was there while they were taking photos. Yet her, from what I could tell, from what I looked at, over 500 pages worth of paper, right? There was no statement from her. Conveniently enough, they did not include her statement where she refutes everything that Anime News Network was saying, right? All these affidavits, all these claims that Vic is an awful person, yet no statement from Miss Ichima, who was the person who was allegedly stalked, no police reports, no reports to the heads of conventions, none of that stuff. None of that stuff. Just tall tales that we're supposed to believe because female accusers made them. I don't believe things because a woman makes an accusation. I am a woman. I know that women can lie. I've had people lie about me, male and female. I've had people tell the truth about me, male and female. I work in an office that looks at things just like this. You need to be able to prove what you say. Having looked through all this, I can tell you that I am now more convinced. And here's the crazy thing. This whole thing, I think, is supposed to convince the reader, right? Whether it be a layperson like myself, or whether it be a judge, who's the most important person, right? Because again, they want this dismissed, they want money for legal fees and for attorney's fees, and now they want a sanction against Vic. So this is supposed to convince the reader that Vic is an evil person and that you should throw out the case and give them the win. I can tell you, having read through all this, that all it does is convince me more and more that Vic is a target of a malicious smear campaign, that he indeed has been defamed. And because he has been defamed, that defamation is what has caused the tortious interference, at the very least, in his contract with Rooster Teeth. So all you've done, I can't speak for anyone else, but I do think many would agree with me. But I can say that for myself, having read all this, all it's done is convince me more and more that Vic's biggest crimes were that he's an unfaithful boyfriend and he's too physically affectionate with underage people. Guess what? Not a crime. Disappointing perhaps, but not a crime. Yet you have these people who are taking their interactions with him from over 10 years ago, weaponizing those interactions with him, in my opinion, casting these interactions as something that they were not, coming up with cartoonishly, just cartoonish, over-the-top stories, and saying that he's guilty. Not proving he's guilty, saying he's guilty. And they seem to forget that this is playing out not only in the legal court, where it's most important, but this is also playing out in the court of public opinion. Public opinion is not on your side, Monica, Jamie, Ron, Kara, John Prager, Faisal Ahmed, and others. Public opinion is not on your side, Funimation. Public opinion is not on your side. Public opinion is on Vic's side. You know why? Because Vic has shown remorse. Vic has shown pain. Vic has acknowledged that he was terribly wrong in several ways. All you've done with this is make him look good, because now he looks defenseless. He looks near defenseless against an attacking mob. Good. Congratulations, you idiots. You played yourself. So anyway, this has been going on entirely too long. I didn't even realize it's almost been an hour and a half. So anyway, that's my thoughts, my incredibly long thoughts and rants about the TCPA. I hope you're able to sit through all this. But anyway, please let me know what you think in the comments. And I'll hopefully be back with another happier video. Thank you and have a good day. Have a good weekend. It's broiling here in New York City. Bye.